finally, hi. So I just wanted to quickly put out this message. Hopefully it can uplift somebody or make somebody out there feel better. That's my intent on this video. There was a time I worked in a city called Linz and I was working in a restaurant. One time I went to the changing rooms of the restaurant and I found my colleague. Her name was Sarah. She was from Macedonia, so we were both foreigners in Linz, Austria, and so we connected on that level. The fact that she's a foreigner, I'm a foreigner, majority of people who worked at that restaurant were Austrians, and there were a few other foreigners. We weren't very many foreigners because it was like a restaurant where it had been in existence for a long time, so it had regular customers and a lot of them were of that neighborhood and they liked it when they were served by locals. So there wasn't that many foreigners, so we connected on that level. Anyways, I went to the back where we used to change and I found her in tears. I found this chick crying and I was like, Sarah, what's wrong? Like, she was literally sobbing but trying to hide. Like, she had opened her, because we all had these cubicles, lockers where you could go in and change your clothes, and then you were assigned a personal locker where you put in your clothes, and she had opened it halfway so she could stick her head in there and cry, but I could hear her because she was like sobbing. So I went and said, Sarah, what's wrong? And she just, hugged me, because she used to say that, oh, you're nice, like she can, we can. See, the thing is, I'm not necessarily nice. I just like to leave people be. I'm not going to disturb you if you don't disturb me. So I think there's a difference between being kind and being nice. I don't play nice. I can fight. But if you don't give me a reason to fight, we'll be cool throughout. I'll never bother you and I will just stay on my lane. I like to stay on my lane and that people stay on their lane, and we should be fine. But nice, I'm hardly nice. So anyways, she said, oh, you're so nice. I'm glad you're the one who walked in, because she was afraid. She wasn't sure who that was that just walked in, and she'd be sobbing and, she has mucus and tears. And I said, Sarah, what happened? Because I was like, why is she crying like somebody died? In my mind, actually, I thought she had gotten a phone call from Macedonia, her country, that something had happened at home. And I knew that she had kids. So I thought maybe it's something with one of her kids. And she was like, Liz, you won't believe what they are saying. I said, who? And she said, the people who we work with, our colleagues. And I was like, what are they saying? And she said some of the people who we found there, like the older colleagues, were talking about how if it wasn't for this particular boss, the boss who was our boss at the time, Sarah wouldn't have a job. Sarah is only here because the boss kind of likes her. Otherwise, who would hire someone like Sarah? So she had overheard them saying that she's not hireable. She's not someone who can work in a restaurant. Nobody needs her. Nobody needs that kind of person working for them. And so they were like, if it wasn't for the boss, she only got the job because the boss likes her. But if it wasn't for him, she would not be working. And then they were making jokes. And so she was telling me the things she overheard them saying, because she had come earlier and they didn't expect her, and they were standing at the coffee machine and they were all talking about this. And so she shared some of the jokes that they were making, they were saying things as, these are the kinds of people who normally should be homeless, about her. Sarah should normally be homeless. What is she doing living in a house and all? And they were giggling and laughing. Girl, normally you should be homeless. They were saying this in German. And so she was crying, and I could not connect. I could not understand. I mean, yes, I understand that they said mean things, but I could not understand why this is affecting her to that extent, where she was telling me, you know what, Liz, wiping her tears and going weißt du was? Ich suche einfach eine neue Job. She was telling me, I'll just look for a new job and I'll just leave them be, right? I'll just go. She just needs peace. She will look for a new job. And I was like, whoa, Sarah, that's extreme. Because in my mind, I couldn't make the connection. So that day I went home I mean, obviously I was like, here, sorry, here, and I tried to comfort her, and I told her, just go home and be okay. Like I didn't have the words, I didn't know what to tell her. I was like, just relax, take some water, call your family back at home, and here. But I was left there confused. I was just about to start my own shift, but I was confused, like there was something in my mind that was not connecting one and one. So I went home after my shift and I told my husband, hey, Sarah, the girl who I told you is nice at work, the one who I talked to sometime, because this was a part-time job. You remember Sarah, the girl who I told you that I like very much from work? And my hubby was like, yeah, I know Sarah, the Macedonian. I said, yes, although my hubby had never seen her, but you know how it is when you're a couple, you always like go home and talk about people from work. And he was like, yeah. I said, I found her sobbing in the changing room, and she now wants to look for a new job. She wants to leave. And then I told my husband the story, and he was like, oh, poor girl, why are they bullying her? Then I said, but why is she crying like that, and why does she want to leave? And then my husband was like, because they made her feel bad and unwanted. And I said, but why is it making her feel that way? Like, I was confused. I seriously could not make the connection. And my husband attempted to explain it to me, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. And I still had not understood it. I was just pretending to understand it. And years later, after I had left that place and, years had passed, I just coincidentally bumped into her in town, because I liked to shop in one of the stores at the mall in that city. And I bumped into her as she was leaving the store, and we decided to have a coffee at that mall. And we sat, actually I have that highlight on my Instagram. If you want, you can go and check out my Instagram. I also try to post content there sometimes. And I said, Sarah, I have to ask you something, because I still, all these years later, I still could not make the connection. It was like 2 years later, 2.5 years later, and I still did not get it. This time, she had actually gotten promoted in that company. She was an assistant manager at the restaurant. She was still there. She never left. But I was like, but why did you want to leave though? And then she said, she actually laughed about it and said, oh, you're talking about that time when you found me crying in the, and she's just laughing about it. And she told me how some of those women quit, some of those women left, some of them are still there, but they're still at the same level. She has to manage them, and etc., etc. And I was like, but why did that make you want to leave? And you were like crying, and you were literally sobbing like somebody died. And I told her the way I think, because I think my wiring, my mind when it comes to such things is wired differently. And I hope there's somebody out there who's also wired like me, so I'm not the only one. I don't get such things. You see, if a bunch of people say that you don't deserve to have what you have, like if it wasn't for the boss, Sarah wouldn't be working here. That's their opinion. That's how my mind works. My mind will be like, okay, like that's their opinion. That's what they believe. And maybe they really believe it. Like, if it wasn't for the boss, Sarah would be homeless. Okay. It does not change the fact that one, she is not homeless, and two, she will still work there. Whether you think she deserves it or not, your opinion does not change the facts. Sure, I get why somebody would feel bad. Like, I wouldn't want people saying that about me, that, normally these are the kinds of people that are homeless and making jokes and going like, what is she doing living in a house and all. I get why that would be, actually it's kind of hilarious. Like, how do you ask what someone is doing living in a house? Like, you're so stupid. Like, I get the hurtful part. I just don't get how it would make somebody sob and want to run, leave that workplace. By them ganging up to say this about me, my mind would interpret it like, oh, you people want me to lose what I already have. Because for me, it's a bird in the hand, right? And as they say, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. I'm not going to the bush to look for other birds. I already have this one in the hand. So whether you think I deserve it or not is null and void. It doesn't matter, it's irrelevant. That's your opinion, and I'm not leaving because you said that. I don't know if there's anyone else who can relate, but I just didn't make that connection in my mind of why that would prompt her to want to leave. And every time I've been in situations like that, I don't understand how people leave what they already have to, like, it's like you're bringing to life the prophecy of those people talking about you, and you're actually now going to go and be homeless. What if you don't get another job? What if Sarah doesn't get another job? You know what I mean? Like, they are saying things about you that are not true. The reality doesn't match what they are saying. They are saying that, you don't deserve to be there, but you are there. They are saying that people like you normally are homeless, but you are not homeless. So the facts are not matching what they are saying. That's what I mean. I just don't get how it would make somebody sob and want to run, leave that workplace. Isn't that a little extreme? I couldn't relate to that at all because I told her, Sarah, that was their opinion and what they thought. It doesn't change the reality of what is happening. What is happening is that you're getting paid every month by that restaurant that you should normally not be working at. So you're lucky, right? That as a foreigner, you're still working at that restaurant and getting money every single month, regardless of what the natives think, regardless of how they think you don't deserve it. It is still happening. My mind could not get how somebody could sob about that and want to change jobs. How much importance have you given these people? Like, I think some of you, the reason why you are so hurt and sad and sobbing and always depressed is because you give a lot of importance to people's words, thoughts, and opinions. They are entitled to their opinions. Hey, people can have opinions. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't change the reality. I think some of you just need to have that switch in your mind where you can differentiate between an opinion and a fact. I mean, the devil is one of the most opinionated beings out there. Still, he's not the truth. He's not the way. He is not the life. The devil has all sorts of things to say about you. Still, you don't have to listen to them because he is not like God. He does not know how you think, what you think. He can only observe and draw conclusions. He is not omnipotent and he does not have any power over our life unless we believe his opinions. It's the same logic. Maybe that makes me a cold person because you could say that, and I know I'm not a cold person, but maybe in the eyes of other people that is pretty cold. Like, how could I not get why she was the way she was and she was thinking of quitting? Because I can make the difference between facts and opinions. That's only their opinion. I looked at Sarah and I thought, you have put so much importance in these people. Like, they're a bunch of people talking about you. And then later, after that meeting that we had years later and had a coffee and we hugged and it was nice to see you, Sarah, nice to see you, Lizzie, and we were talking and we said goodbye. Later when I went home, something clicked in my mind. I was like, did she just say she's assistant manager? So do you see how that works? It's like there are certain demons that know when your calling is about to happen. There are certain evil spirits that observe us, like monitoring spirits, or I don't know what they are called, that watch us and know when you're just about to be elevated, to be chosen. And they don't want you to be chosen. They want you to not answer to your greater calling. Like Sarah's calling was obviously to manage this restaurant. She was going to be an assistant manager. There's a reason the boss liked her. And me, as far as I'm concerned, if I was to be asked, she was a pretty good worker. She was very friendly with people, very charismatic, and she was very orderly in her work. So they had ganged up because the demons had manifested themselves in this bunch of people. One thing about life is that a demon cannot stand on its own. It needs company. And if you observe life, bullies always come in a clique. You never see a bully operating sufficiently and successfully alone. They always need one another. And it's not only in school. These cliques are even in the office. You will see that there's a bunch of people who are very cliquey. They are quote-unquote friends, but they are friends for a bad cause, not for a good cause. And that's how they operate, in numbers. It's like demons need numbers for them to stand. They are so weak that they have to attack somebody who has a calling on their life or somebody who has a greater purpose. They have to attack you in numbers. They never come alone. I don't know if you've observed that, but I've observed it in school, later in life, at work. They are always in numbers. Why were like 4 or 5 people talking about one person? She had threatened them. The demon saw the calling coming. And then now, years later, after I bump into this chick at the mall, she is telling me, oh, some of them left. Like, we're just talking very casually while having a coffee. And she's saying how some of them left, some of them quit, some of them are still there, but they're still, she's managing them. They're still at the same position. And she moved up. Do you see the spiritual side of this, or am I the only one who sees things that way? It's like when your calling is about to happen, certain demons are assigned. It's like they are summoned by the devil and they're told, go and stop this from happening. So a bunch of people gang up against you for absolutely no reason. I didn't see why they would say that normally Sarah wouldn't have such a job. And she overhears them. This is the work of the demons. Like, why wouldn't she have a job? Why would she be homeless? Because I worked with that chick, and apart from her just being a person who minded her own business, I guess this is why we got along. Because for me, as long as you're not on my path, we will not have a problem. And the reason why those chicks stayed away from me, because they tried it in the beginning, is because I was the crazy African who will yell at you in the middle of the restaurant. You will not talk to me like that. Who will switch from German to English. When restaurants are busy and you people have to do a bunch of stuff at the same time, a lot of people who've not worked in a restaurant do not really understand the dynamics of a restaurant. In a restaurant, there is no title. There is no real title. You will be told that you're working breakfast only, but as soon as they need an extra hand for lunch and dinner, they will call you up. In a restaurant, you just have got to be flexible. You will be told you will only be at the front, at the counter. You're a hostess welcoming guests. Your job is at the door as a hostess. As soon as the coffee machine breaks and people in there are running with food, the waitresses and the waiters, you will be pulled in to go and help, right? That's just the way the dynamics of the restaurant works. So restaurants can be very stressful, especially in that particular restaurant when it was summer and people were there for holiday, like people who moved out of that town and now back home visiting their families. It would get crazy. As soon as a colleague would yell at me, as soon as they would be rude to me, as soon as they would start their little gossiping thing that they did, the older colleagues who had been there longer, I would talk back. I would yell back, because that's me. I'm they just thought the crazy African, leave her alone. So they were never in my path, because the other thing I've had, which I'm very grateful for and I'm very humbled by, is the fact that I have a very financially stable husband who supports me. So I can choose to have a part-time job, I can choose to have a full-time job, or I can choose to stay at home and the bills will still be paid. So I have that soft landing, a cushion where I know even if I just say that's it and I quit in the middle of my shift, the bills are paid. I probably wouldn't act like that if I were alone in Europe, but thank God. This is why I tell you, women, marry up, marry above your social status so you get a certain level of freedom. So anyways, they knew that they couldn't mess with me. I will tell you everything in every language possible. Tusizoeane, usiniambie wewe ni nani. Last me kimruhe. We will have, it's going down. So they left me alone. But we would just say Morgan and yeah, danke, choose, just mal site, the normal things. And I wasn't there for very long. But with Sarah, because she had this soft, nice nature to her, and she was just very soft-spoken, they saw an easy target. And the boss did like her. Everybody noticed it. And I guess this is why he thought this is someone he can work with, and made her assistant manager. Some of you are chosen. You've been singled out, but you don't see it, because the demons are also working overtime to make sure that you get discouraged before your calling reaches. Please remember that. Please remember that. And I guess you have to also remember what I said earlier, that there is a difference between people having opinions and something being a fact. Let people have their opinions. So what? Are they so important that what they say is cast on stone? Why are you putting importance on people who are just people? And you don't even know their stories. You don't even know why they gossip too much. You don't even know why they are the way they are. You don't even know why they are there. Leave people alone. Let them say and think what they want. I've always just understood that. I don't know from where, why. Maybe it's my childhood, just, having a tough upbringing when it came to emotions. Financially, we were okay. Physically, I was okay. But like, in that emotional realm, I had to be there for myself. So I guess that tough upbringing made my mind not be able to connect why she's sobbing and wants to find another job. I was like, what was she doing to my husband? And he was trying to explain it to me, and I was like, okay. And this makes her feel like, okay, got it. But I still hadn't gotten it. Anyways, if you made it to the end of this video, reflect on what we just talked about, because I did say that I'm going to create a community of thinkers. We can share thoughts, we can think philosophically, try to uplift one another, and just figure out this thing called life. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Ciao!